Are you setting up shared task management software for you and your team, but you're unsure about what you need to add and in what way? Well, if that's the case, then this framework might help you out. I'm Parsons, and I have over 10 years of experience helping teams like yours reduce time waste and uncertainty. Right, so this framework is a matrix, and with any matrix, there are two factors and then four quadrants within that matrix. So the two factors are predictability and achievability. I personally find that achievability is the easiest one to understand, so we're going to start with that. Achievability is essentially the way which you think about achievability in any form of task management is that you can get a big red marker and go, yes, I've achieved that. That is done. No longer need to think about that, or at least until next time it comes up. Predictability, little more tricky to understand, but still relatively simple. And these are the sorts of activities, the activity types, where you know what they're going to be and you know when they're going to happen. So for example, doing your annual accounting, you know that it's going to involve, well, I don't know what annual accounting involves. I'm not an accountant, but you can assume that you know what the things are going to be. And you know when it's going to happen. It's going to happen every year, and it's going to happen at the same time every year, depending on your financial years. So if you're bringing those two factors together into four quadrants, you have those which are achievable and predictable, you have those which are achievable and unpredictable, you have those which are unachievable but predictable, and you have those which are unachievable and unpredictable. And you're going to handle each of those in a different way when you set up your task management software. So let's go through each of those quadrants in a little bit more detail. So first off, achievable and predictable. Now your annual accounts, as I said, are a good example of this. Another example might be launching a new service. The service launch itself is achievable, and it's possible to predict what will be involved and when it's going to happen. Barring, obviously, with any project there's going to be surprises, you can, in principle, know everything that's going to happen, everything you need to do to launch that service. So when you're thinking about putting predictable and achievable activities into your task management software, these are the types of activities which lend themselves quite well to the classic task and subtask approach. They also fit very nicely onto a Gantt chart if the software that you're using has that functionality. Let's now move on to achievable and unpredictable tasks. And again, predictability can be about when the work happens or the specifics of the work. So for instance, fulfilling an order, you know what's involved, but you don't know when it's going to happen. Or if you're thinking about development work in sprints, you know when the sprint will happen, but you don't know what the work will be until it's been all signed off by the business analyst. So the achievable and the unpredictable activity type lends itself well to task templates, which can be used when you know what's involved, or you can use Kanban boards for activities with set life cycle stages. So you know the process, the stages that happen for any given piece of work, even though you don't know the specifics of that work yet. So for example, as we said before, development work lends itself to that. Now the third quadrant in our list are those which are unachievable and predictable. Now these are things like weekly meetings, and there's a little bit of nuance here because we're talking about activity types rather than specific tasks. So while each meeting might be achievable, weekly meetings as an activity type cannot be achieved, assuming that those weekly meetings are indefinite. So you know that you're going to have it every week and it can't be achieved. So it's predictable but unachievable. So for those sorts of activities, which are the unpredictable, for the types of activities which are unachievable but predictable, you might decide to set up automatic recurring tasks for the administration of the activity. So for example, you might want to set up a recurring task for sending an agenda and the minutes for the weekly meeting. You might also have an ongoing action log related to that activity. So this might be a separate task list somewhere where all of the actions from that weekly meeting go into that action log, and then you can refer to that action log in the weekly meeting. Again, that's just an example. So this brings us on to the last quadrant of our matrix, which are those activities which are unpredictable and unachievable. So the type of activity which falls into this category would be something like customer service, where while each case can be closed or achieved, you can't achieve customer service as an activity type as a whole. And it's also unpredictable because you don't know when each case is going to come in. Now, whether you can add an unachievable and unpredictable activity to your task management system depends somewhat on how they're currently managed. You might already have a case management system, for example. It also depends quite a lot on the capabilities of the software that you have. You might not even be able to manage cases in an effective way in the software that you choose. So being totally honest, this activity type, unpredictable and unachievable, is the least likely candidate to set up a structure in your task management software setup. So to summarize, you are probably, or at least I would recommend that when you're setting up your task management software, you have different structures based on the achievability and predictability of the activity type. Now, the great thing about most modern task management software is that you can set up different types of task list with different functionality so that all of these different types of structure can live all harmoniously in one place. So that brings us to the end of this video. This is one of the first videos on this channel. So if you're watching this, oh my God, that's incredible. And I'm incredibly grateful. If you have got this far in this video, I'd be grateful for another favor, if that's all right. Not that watching this video is a favor, I hope. I hope this was wildly valuable to you, but I digress. If you could leave in the comments a problem that you're facing with your team in terms of time being wasted or uncertainty, or this is a certain topic that you're really interested in understanding from a team productivity point of view, love to hear about it. Put it in the comments. Also like, subscribe, tell all your friends and even not your friends about this channel. Until next time, I will see you later.